Welcome to the 2021 annual meeting for the Parkchester North Condominium unit owners. I hereby now call this meeting to order. Now that I've had the opportunity to be the president of Parkchester North Condominium, together with the board members and our management team, we will continue to do our best so we could improve the quality of living for a better tomorrow. I would like to thank everyone for their hard work and challenges they've persevered this past year, and all the board members, our back office, front office, staff members, the chief executive officer, Ricky Bizarro, our general manager, Michael Torres, and our director of operations, Isaac Diaz. Of course, we can't forget Department of Public Safety, Director Charles Ortiz. So now I'll turn over the meeting to our counsel, Jeff Reich. Jeff?
Thank you, Celia, and welcome. I'm Jeff Reich from the law firm of Schwartz, Sladkus, Reich, Greenberg, Atlas, and we are the Condominiums attorneys. Tonight, I'll be walking you through the meeting formalities, the first of which is the roll call and examination of the proxies. This will be handled by your submission of your ballot to the Honest Ballot Association, or if you have a proxy, the submission of your proxy. And as mentioned, Honest Ballot will be reviewing those. The second order of business is the presentation of proof of due calling of the meeting. Prior to the meeting start, I spoke with Michael Torres, who confirmed for me that he has the proof of due calling of the meeting, which is evidenced by all your attendance tonight. Our third order of business deals with the reading of the minutes of the prior year's annual meeting minutes. And as we have done for the last 20 plus years, we'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the minutes. And if anybody would like to see those minutes, you can contact the management office and they will send you a copy. I have also been advised that we have a quorum present, which means that the meeting is official and that we can have the election of the open seats on the board. Please note that if you have any questions tonight, you can, and you're online watching us, you can enter your question through the chat function on the Zoom app. If you're at the ball field and you have a question, you can write it on one of the cards that are available, hand it up to one of the condominium staff members who are with you, and they will get it up to us for a response. If for some reason you are unable to get your question to us this evening, you can submit it to the management office anytime after this meeting. And so long as you provide contact information, they will get you a response to your question. This year, we're having elections for 5 cluster representatives. Those clusters are clusters 2, 4, 5, 6, and 16. 2 of the clusters have contested elections, and 3 of the clusters have a single candidate who is running. So for cluster 2, we have Christopher Bassett, Marcia Sneed Jones, and Julio Quinones. For cluster 4, Ricardo Avalos is running unopposed. For cluster 5, Jose Gonzalez is running unopposed. For cluster 6, Rashid Muhammad is running unopposed. And finally, for cluster 16, we have Judith DeFore Howard, Yocasta Marinez, and Guadalupe Monteroso. You should have all received the candidate statement with their biographical information prior to the meeting. Please remember to vote this evening by no later than 8 p.m. using one of the 3 voting methods that was provided in the Honest Ballot notice that you received. Karen James of the Honest Ballot Association will be on in a few minutes, and she will further explain the voting instructions. The Honest Ballot Association has been appointed and will act as the inspectors for tonight's election. After Honest Ballot has tallied the votes, management will notify all of the unit owners of the results. Now, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jonathan Zuckerman of PKF LLP. They are the independent certified public accountants who audit the condominium's financial statement. Jonathan is going to give you a report on the 2020 audit of the condominium's financial statement. Jonathan?
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening. I'm Jonathan Zuckerman, an audit partner with PKF O'Connor Davies, and tonight I'm going to discuss the condominium's annual financial statement audit and discuss some financial highlights for the 2020 year. We performed part of our audit remotely and part of the audit in the offices of Parkchester Preservation. We were able to leverage our technology and paperless audit approach to complete the audit. Our audit fieldwork was performed in late March and early April of this year. We received full cooperation from the board, including Ms. Ramirez, Patricia Connors, and the Finance Committee, and representatives from Parkchester North Condominium, including Vivek Sahani, Michael Torres, Tom DeSocia, and Ruba Bonato from Parkchester Preservation Management. Draft copies of the audited financial statements were provided to the Finance Committee for the April 21 meeting, Parkchester Preservation, as well as the Board of Managers for approval. The financial statements were subsequently approved and have issued our opinion. Regarding our audit report, it is a standard audit report for New York City condominiums. Management is responsible for preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements, and our responsibility is to express an opinion that those financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with accounting standards. Our opinion discloses that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. During our audit, we also obtain an understanding of internal controls over financial reporting. We perform testing procedures over key activities, including rent billings, cash receipts and deposits, bank reconciliations, accounts payable and cash disbursements, signatory controls on bank accounts, payroll processing, and financial reporting controls. Based on our audit procedures, we are not aware of any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control over financial reporting. I will now discuss the condominium's financial statement highlights, starting with the balance sheet. The condominium's balance sheet is a strong balance sheet and is generally consistent with that of the prior year. Total assets as of December 31, 2020, $101 million. Condominium's cash and liquid assets consisted of $9.8 million of operating cash, $2.2 million of certificates of deposit, $281,000 of escrow reserves, $7 million of cash restricted for capital reserves, and $600,000 of collectible receivables. Total cash and liquid assets at the end of 2020 were approximately $910,000 higher compared to the cash and liquid assets at the end of 2019. Common area improvements and equipment, net of accumulated depreciation, total $79.3 million at December 31, 2020. During 2020, the condominium incurred approximately $8.1 million of capital expenditures, which consisted primarily of ongoing roof work, elevator modernization, front entrance, and ceiling and slab restoration work. Current liabilities at December 31, 2020 totaled $6 million. The aforementioned cash and liquid assets at December 31, 2020, excluding the cash restricted for reserves, exceeded current liabilities by approximately $6.8 million. The condominium's total loan payable obligation at December 31, 2020 totaled approximately $37.3 million. The existing loan is an amortizing mortgage, has a maturity date of September 1, 2035, and carries an interest rate of 6.56%. The annual interest expense on the loan for the year 2020 totaled $2.6 million. Moving on to the income statement and income. The condominium's income totaled $38 million, and this is an increase from 2019's total income of approximately $37 million. The increase from the prior year is primarily a result of the increase in the annual common charges as presented in the 2020 board-approved budget. Other than these income categories, the amount of the condominium's other income sources, including commercial rent, remain consistent with the prior year. Moving on to the expenses, the condominium's operating expenses for 2020 totaled approximately $27.3 million, which is a slight decrease from 2019's total operating expenses of $27.6 million. As noted in the pie charts presented, the allocation of the condominium's utilization of operating monies are generally consistent with the prior year, with payroll accounting for approximately 1/3 of the condominium's expenses and utilities accounting for approximately 1/4 of the condominium's expenses. Overall, the condominium's operating net income for 2020 totaled approximately $10.9 million, an increase from 2019's operating net income of approximately $9.2 million. The condominium continues to utilize operating surpluses to fund its ongoing capital projects. Now let's go back to Jeff Reich. Jeff?
Thanks, Jonathan. Now we'll hear from Karen James of the Honest Ballot Association, who will speak to us about the instructions for voting in tonight's election. Karen?
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening. My name is Karen James, an election coordinator for Honest Ballot. Thank you for choosing Honest Ballot again this year. You have 3 options to submit your vote for the election of cluster representatives to the Board of Managers for Parkchester North Condominium. Your first option is online voting. Using your computer, tablet, or smartphone, you go on to the internet browser and sign in. https://parkchester.north.voteonlinehba.com. Enter your voter ID and then enter your password. Click on Login. Then click on 2021 Election for Cluster Representatives. Choose the candidates of your choice and click Continue. If there are no candidates running in your cluster, click on Count for Quorum. Then you will be directed to the review screen. Read over your choices. If your choices are correct, click Confirm. If your choices are not correct, click Change, and you will be directed back to the top of the ballot to make your changes. Then click Confirm. When you click Confirm, your vote will be recorded and your password will expire. Then log out. Your second option is by telephone, by dialing 1-866-306-9894. Then enter your voter ID and password. Then follow the prompts, the voice prompts, to make your selections. If you did not receive your personalized voter ID or password, you may email Honest Ballot at vote@honestballot.com before 8 p.m. tonight. If you submit your vote online or by telephone, your vote is final and it will supersede a vote cast by proxy. Your third option is by proxy. Fill out the proxy form you previously received in your election package. Make sure it's signed and dated. You may hand deliver your proxy to the Honest Ballot representative until 8 p.m. tonight at the Parkchester North ball field. Good luck to all candidates. Please vote and stay safe. Thank you. Now let's hand it over to Michael Torres. Michael?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. We really do appreciate those who were able to tune in on Zoom and those in the ball field. Today is obviously the annual meeting, and at this portion, we will bring it to the question and answers. Our panelists today, in regards, who will be here to answer your questions, will be Jeff Reich, Condominium Counsel, Jonathan Zuckerman, our CPA Audit Financials, Chief Ortiz from the Department of Public Safety, as well as Celia Ramirez, the President of the Board of Managers. I wanted to remind everybody to use the chat function in regards to asking any questions. And we'll be able to go through those questions as well. Jeff will look through them and we will look to answer some of those questions. And so, Jeff, I see that there's some questions that are coming in. If you would be so kind to run through them.
The first question is, what is the justification for the constant raise in common charges? And is any consideration taken to the current inflation and inability for unit owners to keep up with the continuous raising of common charges?
Sure, that's a great question, and I'm sure a lot of people have the same concerns. I will say this, that the board takes this responsibility very seriously, and we begin the budget process in April. We go through many iterations of what the next year is going to bring in terms of additional costs, in terms of inflation, in terms of higher utility costs, in terms of capital costs that we have to cover. We are lucky enough to have a reserve account that we've used in order to keep common charges down. And we're going to continue to do so in terms of looking at the budget for next year and trying to make sure that any increase that is happening for next year will be as low as possible, and so that we can meet our financial obligations for next year.
Michael, there's a second question about when the parks are going to open up.
A good question again. We are actually partially opened up. Right now, we have the south and the east playgrounds are open with limited time frames. Right now, the west is not open because there is scaffolding there, and the north playground will be opening shortly. We just have a playground structure there that needs to be fixed. We're working with the manufacturer to get that part. Once that part comes in, we will have that playground opening up as well.
Okay. There is a question about, are there limits on how long someone can serve on the board? I'll answer that. The bylaws do not create term limits, so there is no limit on the number of terms that someone can serve as long as they continue to be reelected. We have a question: is there any way to make the rental renewal process easier? Seems to be a lot of paperwork. Could it be done online?
So a few things there. We are moving to a new system called Yardi. This should provide us with some efficiencies in that end. We'll be looking to implement that within the next year or so, but certainly stay tuned to having some processes be a little bit more streamlined and be easier for the residents and owners.
Okay, Michael, regarding the service department, one unit owner is suggesting that when they ask to be contacted or called back, that doesn't happen. So they have to wait more than 30 minutes on the phone in order to schedule an appointment. What can be done to resolve that issue?
Well, so the way that we take in calls with the service department is once we receive a call, then we create a work order service ticket. That work order service ticket is then followed up by the operations team and management. Right now, as with many call centers, we are experiencing longer than normal wait times. We have we've added additional members to the call center, and we've also added the ability to email requests on the website.
Okay. Do we have a list of projects, capital projects that will start in the next year or in 2022?
So right now, the capital project for 2022 have not been set yet. We're still working with the budgets and our engineering for those particular projects. However, I can express what we're doing this year. So this year, we are completing our Cycle 8 FISP work. That's what used to be called Local Law 11, where we have to conduct work on the facade of each building. We have 14 facade projects that we are scheduled for this year. We are currently working on 11 of those projects. We're also going to be replacing the roof at 1705 Purdy Street. We are conducting 2 elevator modifications, one at 2220 East Tremont Avenue and one at 1735 Purdy Street. In addition, we are installing an ADA ramp at 7 and 9 Metropolitan Oval. We're also going to be sealing Hawthorne, Pine, and Red Oak Drive. We are also conducting slab repairs to 5 buildings this year. We have completed 2 buildings already, and we will be beginning the 3rd building before the end of this month. And this year, I'm happy to say that we've completed upgrading our exterior lighting, and I really hope that everybody appreciates how bright it is at nighttime.
Okay, Michael, there's a question about the rent that the commercial tenants pay. And the implication is that maybe we're not charging enough to the commercial tenants. Any thoughts on that?
So each commercial tenant right now, it has a lease. So they're bound by the increases that were within those leases. A lot of the tenants are here for a very long time, and so they are contractually bound by those particular increases. Our new our new vacant spaces, or the spaces that are vacant now, we are looking to increase the rent towards something that is more of a market rent for this area. And so we are seeing some interest at those levels. So we are looking to execute leases, our new leases, at those higher market levels.
But Michael, the leases that we do have were market rate leases at the time we entered into them, and they did have built-in escalations. So they should approximate the market at this point.
Correct.
How can someone obtain a copy of the financial report with the proposed budget?
If you want a copy of any of the reports, you can certainly come to the management office. We have no problem providing you with those reports.
Okay. Someone at 1507 Met Oval saying is their front door has been broken a number of times. It can be weeks before it's fixed, and the fix doesn't last very long. They want to know if there's cameras on the front door and if anything is being done about this issue.
You know, I guess this is kind of a 2-part question. I'll certainly pass it off to the Chief Ortiz. But in terms of management and our response to any unsecured door that happens or any vandalism that does happen, we look to fix it as soon as possible. In regards to looking to stop that particular vandalism, I'll certainly pass it over to Chief Ortiz so he can explain the efforts of DPS. Chief, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. All the lobbies are cambered. Once one of the door strikes or the door is damaged and it's reported to the Department of Public Safety, we immediately conduct an investigation. We review the camera footage to see if we can identify the person that committed the damage to the door. We, on an annual basis, we effect quite a few arrests, and we obtain restitution for the condominiums. If it's something that someone purposely broke, we definitely move forward with the investigation, and we end the prosecution. A lot of the doors it's the sheer volume. And, you know, once we are aware that there's an issue with the doors, we give that information to management, and they put that on their queue to fix the issues.
Great. Chief, while you're on the screen, there's a request for a general security update, staff count, and changes in the crime rate or number of crimes.
We were down in 2020. We are slightly up, and it's by 3 or 4 crimes. So for all intents and purposes, we are flat for crime for 2021. As far as our staffing levels, we never go and give actual numbers of our staffing levels, but we are putting a class in for officers. And once that class is completed, we will be up to full staffing levels. So we're doing well on property as in regards to crime, compared to our neighbors within Bronx County and other boroughs. We are doing extremely well here. So there's really no area, reason for concern for any issues on property.
Thank you, Chief. Michael, when the tally has been done on the election, how can somebody get in touch with their new cluster representative? How do they contact them?
So we have an email set up. It's called REP at parkchesternorth.com. That email is monitored by Marlene Torres, who is the board executive assistant, and she always goes through those particular emails and reaches out to the cluster representative to connect that particular person with their cluster rep. So that's REP at parkchesternorth.com.
Another question about the rental process. The question is, why are owners required to pay for applications for updated renewals? And I can take this. Renting an apartment at Parkchester Condominium, Parkchester North, is a privilege. It's not a right. It requires board approval, as do renewals. So the management office looks through the application. They look through security records and make sure that there haven't been issues with that particular tenancy. That is the reason why there's a process and a number of people involved, and that's why there is a fee that is charged. Garbage dumping. Has a plan been devised to resolve the garbage dumping in front of 1503 Met?
So I can certainly discuss this particular topic. And again, I understand the question is directed towards 1503 Met, but this is a property-wide issue. And I will say this, that with the pandemic, we have experienced an increase in the amount of garbage that we have to deal with. And I will state that our staff works tirelessly in managing the tremendous amount of garbage we deal with on a daily basis. A few things to note is we have purchased a new vehicle, which is due to come in within about 4 weeks. This is a vehicle that has enough capacity to ensure that we are able to pick up all garbage each morning prior to the staff's 9:30 break. This includes all big bellies and trash cans around the property. And secondly, we have curbside pickup with the Department of Sanitation at 4 locations within the property. This is where we have to bring the black bags out onto the property, wait for sanitation to come to pick up the garbage. So there's a period of time where we have garbage just sitting on property. We're looking into options with the sanitation department to see if we can build some sort of a containment area in those locations, so that the unsightliness of the garbage will at least be alleviated, and we can manage that a bit better than we have been. But again, this is an issue that is ongoing. It's becoming more, it's not becoming less in terms of the amount of garbage that we're dealing with. We're also looking at purchasing equipment such as balers to help with the recycling. We are working directly with Department of Sanitation to take, they provide us with 30-yard containers that we hold in our Purdy field, Purdy yard, where we have all the garbage going there for recycling and for bulk, where they come and they pick that up whenever the container becomes full. So it is a process. It's something that we're continually looking at. We work closely with the board on different options. We're weighing everything that is being presented to us, and we're looking to make an impact in the coming months.
Thanks, Michael. Can you say a few words about the towing situation? There's an allegation here that the towing company is acting in an unfair manner and preying on residents and not giving them any grace period before they hitch up the cars and take them away.
I think I can answer that for Michael. So the tow company works from our direction, from complaints that we get that are generated from building meetings, complaint reports, complaints that we receive over the phone, and they respond and police the property for illegal parking. The checks and balances are the driver has a body worn camera that activates prior to doing the tow. So it's the entire interaction is recorded. They have to radio into the Department of Public Safety to obtain permission to tow that vehicle. And if there's any complaints from our residents, that immediately is directed to our internal affairs bureau within our department, and there's an immediate into those allegations. So there are checks and balances. If they're just not randomly towing people, they prior to towing any vehicle, they need to obtain public safety.
Okay, if Jonathan is available and can come onto the screen, a question was raised about the administrative expenses, salaries. The question is whether they showed an unusual amount in the prior year.
Sure, Jeff. Basically, the wages are made up of union employees, so those are based on collective bargaining agreements. They actually decreased from the prior year, and that's related to headcount. So there was a decrease in headcount from year to year. So as part of our audit procedures, we do look at the payroll expense and related expenses. So.
Thank you. Michael, 1562 Unionport Road. A resident there is saying that the building isn't cleaned and that there were trash cans outside the building that were removed during the pandemic and have not been returned. Anything about that situation?
Sorry. So there were a number of trash cans that were removed in response to the possibilities of the protests and it getting out of hand. When we did remove, and this was back when last year, when we did remove those garbage cans, we found that there were a number that were placed in areas that people just love to dump. One of them being by 1562, where every single morning they would walk through that area and use that as a dumping ground. And that became a big, huge eyesore for the property. So we've actually strategically placed the cans back where we would, where they're not susceptible to this type of dumping. Unfortunately, going back to the garbage situation, there is a lot of people who just use these big bellies and trash cans that are on the property as an opportunity to just dump their garbage on their way going somewhere, and they just throw it on the floor. So part of it is strategic, but again, the other part is really trying to limit the amount of areas where we're getting a lot of dumping.
Okay. Chief, there's a question about vehicles being allowed to drive on the walkways, the pedestrian walkways, and the resident is saying that they're seeing an increase in cars driving or standing on the walkways.
And I think that's in regards to one location, 1641 Metropolitan Avenue. Well, that's something we will look into. So there are some authorized individuals that are authorized to drive on property. We have employees from the condominium. You have emergency vehicles, and you also have private contractors that are actually doing renovation or some type of work for the condominium. Is the general public authorized to drive? No, they're not. If there's an increase in volume there, that's an easy, it's easy for us. We'll take a look at that area there to see what's going on. It could be something, a repair of one of the security gates, so forth. But I'll take a look at it. It's 1641 Metropolitan Avenue, right?
Yes. Yes.
Take a look at that, and we'll address that if there's any issues.
There is a question of whether Parkchester North offers a rent-to-own option. Parkchester North doesn't sell apartments except in very rare occasions when it comes into an apartment through a foreclosure or by exercising its right of first refusal. There may be investor owners willing to sell apartments on a rent-to-own basis, but the condominium does not speak for that. You have a question about the gates of the building being replaced by bars that are raised automatically. But when the firefighters and ambulances come, they do not have access because they do not work when the sirens sound. Is there a fix for this problem before it results in a tragedy?
If there's any issues whatsoever, that information is given to the IT department, and they're on it almost immediately. If there's an issue with a particular arm, we'll leave it open to air, just in case there's an issue, someone needs emergency vehicle or police response or the fire department or EMS. But that's something that's monitored on a daily basis. If they're not operating properly, we put them out of service and they're left up.
And just to add to that, though, each automatic lift gate is designed for to work with emergency vehicles with a chirp. So when they actually chirp their siren, it actually triggers the arm to lift. So they do have the ability to lift, and they are aware of this.
Okay, we have a question about rents, and from an investment perspective, whether we have any data or metrics about the rental market at Parkchester. Again, we're focused on the condominium unit owners and the condominium residents, not necessarily the rental side of that. But Michael, if you have anything you want to add.
No, I think you hit it on the head there, Jeff. In regards to rental data, we have it just from conducting the renewals and conducting the applications. So we do have rental data. We don't necessarily keep it for the purposes of providing it out as information, but we do have that information within our files.
Okay. Any plans to deal with the perceived increase of the number of dogs on the property?
Sure, I can answer that. So this is a very big topic, and obviously we have seen the increase of dogs coming onto property. We have created a canine committee that will be held in June. This committee's sole focus will be to address the issues and concerns as it relates to the dogs. We will provide updates through the newsletter and which efforts that we're going to be conducting. But stay tuned, because we are looking at this very closely, and we have created a committee in order to do so.
Okay, Michael, we do have a complaint about garbage in front of 2100 East Tremont as well as 2120. So we should make note of that. A question about how we keep track of the people in the rental apartments how do we keep track of who should be in the apartments when there are numerous people who are not on the lease?
Well, when you provide an application for a rental, or if you're going to be renting to somebody, we have a disclosure form that you have to disclose how many people, who's going to be living in that apartment. We don't release any key fobs, any additional key fobs, unless there are registered tenants. Only registered tenants get key fobs. Obviously, I'm sure Chief can attest to this. There are times that we come across people who are living there who are not registered, at which point we do issue fines and penalties for that particular owner.
Okay. You touched on the garbage cans earlier, but there's another question about the number of garbage cans, and this person's claiming there are only 9. Will more be added?
I don't know the exact number at this point, but again, we'll take a look at where there needs to be some garbage cans, and if we have to add, then we will.
Okay. just trying to understand what this question is about. The front vestibule at the entrance of 1725 Purdy Street has a wall hole going for 9 months, a hole in the wall at 1725 Purdy.
Okay. Well, I know that 1725 Purdy is one of the buildings that we have listed on to conduct repairs to from top to bottom. So we are aware, and we'll look to get that done as soon as possible.
Drivers of e-bikes on the sidewalks, are they being given citations, and what do we do about repeat offenders?
Well, we issue citations, and we will continue to issue citations. What's allowable under city law. So we're governed by the city with those citations. They are, they are city citations. They're not something that's issued within administratively, unless they are one of our tenants or they're living on property or a commercial tenant. We will issue an in-house summons. But we issue numerous summonses for people driving e-bikes on sidewalks or opposite the direction of traffic and so forth. And also, I think they're starting a new initiative with the New York City Police Department, just dealing with those quality of life conditions because it's pretty rampant, in the city.
Great, thank you. Michael, there's a question about inconsistency with the heating during the winter season and asking whether there's a quote unquote rotation system in effect. Can you talk about that?
So we work with the heating plant in providing steam to all to heat all the buildings. When the temperature hits 55 degrees or below is when we start to provide heat as per the rules and regulations of New York City. And so we look to provide everybody heat as best as possible. And many times we have to do some rotations just in order to make sure that we're using the correct pounds of pressure as the heating plant allows. But we do look to supply heat with everybody. And if there's ever any concern, our heat control department is ready to conduct inspections and to see what, if any, issues there may be in regards to heat.
Earlier, we talked about the administrative staff expenses, and it was mentioned that we had a decrease in the number of staff members. There's a question as to why there was a reduction in staff.
So there is no reduction in staff. We did have a slight reduction for a period of time due to COVID, and we are now fully staffed, and we are back to the staff levels of pre-COVID.
Okay. Some of the questions and comments relate to individual departments, so we're going to skip over those, but we'll make note of them for the management team to deal with after the meeting. Another question about the bar at the entrance to the property at 1562 Unionport. This person is saying that it doesn't work and that there were ambulances that could not get in on 2 occasions.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, because if that is the case, it will certainly be addressed.
Newsletters, how are they shared and distributed?
So newsletters, we have gone to e-newsletters for, I believe, the past 3 years. We've been issuing newsletters on a bi-monthly basis, and in many cases on a monthly basis, depending on the amount of information that we're looking to disseminate to the residents and the owners. We are going to be sending out newsletters on a regular basis, and we're also going to be implementing a new section within the newsletter called the owner section and what you need to know. And so this will provide some transparency to all the owners in regards to what it is in terms of regulations, rules, regulations that we are have to abide by and be in compliance of from New York City, New York State, and all the other regulatory agencies that are really making it a bit difficult in regards to having to be in compliance. Also, any initiatives that we're going to begin, we'll put in that section. So I certainly urge anybody who has not signed up for the e-newsletter to please do so, and so that you can become part of that information or that dissemination of information, because it's really a great outlet. It's a great platform for us to provide you the information, and for you as an owner to keep up to date with what the board is doing and what initiatives are going to be happening.
Just a public service announcement. There are two ways that people are asking their questions. One is through the Q&A function, and one is through the chat function. I am working through the Q&A questions. I'm going to switch over to the chat questions. So from this point forward, if you have a question, you'll want to put it through the chat function, because we're going to switch off the Q&A and onto chat in a moment.
Yeah, I do want to just address one comment that was made in the questions and answers. It states, and it's not necessarily a question, but it does state salaries of admin, president, VP over 2 years. I want to assure everybody that being a board member to this condominium, and to really any condominium, is a voluntary position. The board members do not get paid. This is not something that they're in it for, the glory. They are putting their time, their effort, and their expertise on the line every single year to make things better. So I applaud every single one of them who have taken their time and really have given their charity to this condominium.
Okay. What are we doing to market the vacant commercial spaces?
So we are working with a broker, New York Space Finders. They have worked with the committee, the Leasing and Management and Commercials Committee, and developing a strategic strategy in order to see which type of stores we want, what are we looking to do, what type of stores will bring in a good message, a crowd, and again, it's something that is a little bit difficult to really kind of target some areas because of the environment that we're in, where we're not getting so many, let's say, Chipotle's or perhaps some higher end. We're getting a lot of deli interests, and we kind of want to pull back from that. We are getting some good interest in the medical field, which is something that we're looking strongly at, but we also want to make sure that we are getting the appropriate pricing, as was a question prior to this one, where we want to make sure that we are having our space rented for the right price.
There's a question about what happens to a property, a unit, when the condominium exercises its right of first refusal. So in those instances, the condominium renovates the unit and puts it on the market and attempts to sell it at a profit, which benefits the entire condominium. Michael, does the condominium have extermination services, or what should someone do if they feel that there is an issue that requires extermination in an apartment?
Sure. So we have a company by the name of A-Class. A-Class has two people on site at all times. We have a schedule for them, a 6-day schedule where they're doing constant building maintenance, apartment maintenance. They're doing bed bugs. They're doing just about everything you can think of when it comes down to exterminating. So if you do have an issue in regards to any rodents or insects, please contact service, and you will literally get an appointment within the week.
Okay. What's the process for making sure that the staff members are doing their job? This relates to cleanup and keeping the buildings clean.
Certainly. So accountability is the number one thing, right? We want to be able to hold our porters accountable for their responsibilities in their building. So in order to hold somebody accountable, we want to make sure that they're well trained, that they understand exactly what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And so we've gone through retraining of everybody in order to make sure that there are no excuses as to why this person or that person is not cleaning up. But again, I think that is few and far between in terms of porters that may need to have additional training where the buildings are not well kept. But we do also have what we call Happy Co inspections, where it's a program called Happy Co, and it does provide us with tremendous feedback as to the conditions of each building. That allows us to have some data in regards to which buildings we need to target and provide some additional help. That in conjunction with working with our foremen, who are constantly on top of the guys and are constantly giving management feedback, and working with our property managers, as well as our director of operations. We're also creating initiatives where there is a reporting, there is a requirement of reporting up, so that we are able to maintain the building in a way where accountability is key. And when there's something to be addressed, it's not going to be the first time that they hear it. They'll understand that this building needs to be cleaned if that so is the case.
Okay, there's a question as to whether or not the condominium does renovations for senior owners. The answer to that is no. The condominium doesn't own units. Again, unit owners, whether if you're renting from somebody or if you own your own unit, if you'd like to alter it, that's your prerogative. It is not something the condominium does for people. Michael, is it possible to purchase screens, window screens from the condominium?
Yes, it is. We do provide that service. You just have to call service, and we will put you on the schedule.
Okay, I applaud this next question. Very ambitious. The question is Parkchester considering moving from fossil fuels to wind, solar, or green roofing?
Well, I echo your sentiment, Jeff. I applaud your question there, but I will say this, that the board and management are looking at every type of renewable energy that is out there that Parkchester could possibly enter into. There's a huge effort in regards to the city as well as the state to push towards renewable energies and to reduce the carbon footprint. They have a local law that they're implementing, Local Law 97, where we're going to have some more compliancy that we're going to have to hit each mark, and that will provide us with some efficiencies in terms of energy, in terms of moving away from fossil fuels. That's a bit more challenging, where we do have a heating plant that is heated by natural gas as well as oil.
Okay, there's a question about conditions in the garage. I'll just state that the garage is not run by the condominium. It's not something that the condominium has control over. The condominium does deal with the outside spaces in the drives and sells the parking permits, but not the garage. Okay. They wanted a question about whether or not we could have the exterminators come to the buildings more frequently.
So they are on a schedule in regards to hitting the common areas. They do not go to every single apartment when they hit the common areas. They go to apartments based off of a appointment.
Okay. When there's a problematic tenant, how do we deal with them? If their lease expires, is Parkchester required to renew their lease? Well, we talked about this earlier. The Parkchester doesn't lease the apartments. If there's an investor owner who is leasing an apartment to a problem tenant, that renewal application is rejected. Before that happens, we can issue fines to the owner of the unit, which hopefully has the impact of trickling down and affecting the behavior of the tenant. Is there anything that can be done about the loud music that's blasting at all times of the night from the Parkchester car wash?
I guess we'll make a note of that. Charlie, Chief.
Yeah, I would encourage you to call 311 when you hear noise coming from that location. I'm not sure if it's the actual establishment or it's people that are actually, they're getting their car washed. So that's, if you generate 311 calls, that will go directly to the precinct CO, who's the 49th precinct. We're talking about the car wash on East Tremont, correct?
Yes.
I don't have that. Yes. So that would be the 49th precinct. You can call 311 and make complaints. They will send their community affairs officers over there to see what the issue is. But it's probably vehicles that are actually getting their cars washed.
Okay. Michael, when will Hawthorne Drive be repaved and have the parking lines repainted?
Sure. So we've been trying to do that for about a year now, and not necessarily to any fault of management, but when Con Edison, if you remember, Con Edison had to install gas lines. And so they pretty much tore up or ripped up the street, the asphalt. And in doing that, they had to agree to fix and reseal and restripe that drive. Since then, we've had a lot of capital work there and a lot of bridging there. So we actually have a window in the coming months where we're going to have no work that's being done in that area, and we're going to be scheduling Con Edison to conduct that work. But working with Con Edison is a bit challenging sometimes because they are very bureaucratic, and so we're just looking to get them lined up right now. We're talking to them on a weekly basis.
Okay, there's a question about whether Parkchester North will ever be provided with additional parking areas. I don't know who would provide that. There's no plans or idea of how Parkchester North would come in possession of additional property for parking. It's a question about dogs and why the board chooses to try and enforce a ban as opposed to allowing dogs and taking a pet deposit. And that's something that the committee that Michael referred to earlier is going to be evaluating. There's a question about when are the next board elections? Well, we have board elections tonight, and we'll have board elections next year at the annual meeting. In fact, we have board elections every annual meeting, but the cluster reps serve 3-year terms. All the board members serve 3-year terms. So each cluster comes up in a cycle over the course of a 3-year period. Michael, is it possible to get more compost containers?
Well, we would look into that to see if that's going to be something that we're going to enter into where we have compost containers around, but we have not gotten a decision from DSNY just yet.
Will the security staff resume 2-man patrols on the property?
The security staff are 1-man patrol. If we get any intel that there is a danger to law enforcement, we pair them up. But for us to cover more ground on property, it's beneficial for us to continue to 1-man patrol. We have more more people out there covering more ground, addressing issues, and we've been fortunate the property really does not require to have 2-man patrols unless there is credible intelligence that our officers may be involved with.
Okay. Michael, is there a possibility of having plumbers, not just porters, available during evening hours?
So with the collective bargaining agreement, the hours of plumbers are specified for Monday through Friday for between the hours of 7:30 to 4 o'clock.
Okay. There are a couple of questions that harken back to things we spoke of. Signing up for the newsletter, how is that done?
So if you want to sign up for the newsletter, please contact the board. I'm sorry, not the board, the management office. You can contact the management office. If you have a pen, I'll give you the number, which is 917-634-5200. That's 917-634-5200. 5200.
Okay. Has the condominium considered offering renovation services to the owners? Upgrades comparable at a comparable rate to outside vendors. That's something that the condominium does not operate to earn a profit. It's outside of the scope of the bylaws. It's just not something that would be done. Too many liability concerns and other concerns. Can we make sure to give tickets to people who don't clean up after their dogs?
Yes.
There's another question about extended hours for service, but Michael, you just referred to the collective bargaining agreement and the hours under that agreement, and that is the reason why. Is there possibility of Saturday extermination services?
We do have Saturday extermination services currently. So if there's if that's something that you need in regards to scheduling your service, then certainly we will provide that.
Okay. Two questions about door security. One is, can a unit owner install a Ring doorbell? Assumably that would be outside of their own door, not outside of the front door of the building. And two, can condo owners have access to the lobby cameras?
Okay, can you repeat the question again?
Is someone allowed to install one of the doorbells that allows you to see who's outside your door? They referenced Ring, which is
right. So I don't know what the legality of that would be. There's nothing really that states within our bylaws. And then again, Chief, something in terms of if somebody wants to do that,
well, as far as the camera goes, there's no problem with taking the video. The question is, you're really not supposed to do anything outside of your apartment in terms of any kind of alteration. So I think the board, that's sort of a 2021 issue that hasn't come up before, and that's certainly something the board can consider and get back maybe through the newsletter about the ability of someone to do that. But is there any ability to tap into the lobby camera feed?
no. We have an old and antiquated system in some of the buildings that's still running that uses an antenna system that ties into a separate camera that's there. But for the most part, those systems have been those systems are obsolete and taken down, and the current ones right now are part of the network of cameras, and so those are not reviewable by the TV.
Okay, a follow-up on the energy saving plan and local law 97. Can you repeat or explain your answer regarding the energy saving plan, which the city is forcing on all large properties?
Yeah, so at this point, the entire industry is trying to figure out what local law 97 means for their particular property. We work with a number of consultants on energy, and they are working tirelessly and trying to figure out just what it means for us as Parkchester, not just for the north, but also for the south. And what does it really mean for us in terms of savings, efficiencies, as well as dollars in terms of cost. So there's going to be some big implications in regards to this local law, but we are working through it as we speak.
Okay, here's one. A resident received a notice from the Department of Finance, Michael, saying that there are charges on the tax base lot for the condominium, not on their own unit, but on the 7501 tax lot. And they're asking that unit owner to contact the managing agent to make sure that those charges are paid. So we should certainly look into that.
Absolutely. I know we pay them. I know this issue does come up where the Department of Finance is stating that we have not paid, but we have paid. I don't know if Jonathan, you have any record of that. I don't believe you may have that, but I know Vivek works with that directly, who's our Director of Finance.
Okay.
And that's more of, that's not really part of the actual condominium. It's more Vivek and his department.
Right.
Question about the organizational flow chart of the board. The board is 27 members. There's a president, 3 vice presidents, a treasurer, and a secretary. And there are committees, various committees that meet and deal with a multitude of issues that come before the board. Those committees deal with the issues that they have jurisdiction of. They come back to the board, they make a recommendation, there's discussion, and then the board votes on it. There's really nothing complicated about the flow chart, but we can certainly make sure that the newsletter lists the names of the various officers on the board. It's a complaint about the cameras between 5, 7, and 9, 5, 7, 9, 11 met, and they are suggesting that they're an eyesore. Is there something that can be done to make them more aesthetically pleasing?
The cameras?
Yes.
Well, I would have to look into seeing if which cameras, because we are actually engaged in a camera replacement campaign, because the cameras themselves have a shelf life or an expectancy of, I believe, anywhere between 5 and 8 years. And so we're constantly looking at that particular cycle and which ones we need to upgrade. The upgraded cameras do look nicer, I would say that. They're a little bit more sleeker, but again, you know, if it's functioning and it's functioning correctly, this is something that we always look into.
Michael, are there any upgrades being made to the intercom system?
So currently, no, we don't have plans, but we are conducting our studies in regards to how much it's going to cost. Because again, there are things that we would love to have, and then there becomes a reality of how much it actually costs. Preliminary numbers are upwards of anywhere between $2 to $4 million in order to conduct the type of replacements that would be acceptable in terms of bringing our intercom system to you know, video and a bit more technological, you know, applications. But it's something we are looking at, but it's not something that we're looking to pull the trigger at this very moment. We're still in the due diligence phase.
Okay. When is the next renewal negotiation for the collective bargaining agreement? I think what everyone has to understand is that there are a number of different that the employees are represented by. So Michael, would it be fair to say that there are negotiations almost every year?
Well, funny enough, we do have 6, well, I'm sorry, we have 6 unions, but we only have 3 negotiations, and all of them come due just around the same year, which is right around now. So this year we are entering into negotiations with our unions.
Okay, I'm going to take the next one, which is if we have a problem with how management is performing, who do we contact? So what you'd want to do in that instance is you'd want to contact the management office, get the name of your cluster representative, and request that your cluster representative get in touch with you. You can bring it to the cluster representative, who will bring it to the board and look into those issues. What to do if you have a noisy neighbor? Well, you're going to call security. Chief, do you want to say more on that?
Sure. Reach out to us. We will, unfortunately, we have to witness the noise. So sometimes my officers will ask to gain entrance to your apartment so that they can hear what's going on either above, below, or to either side of you. And if we witness that, the noise, the elevated noise, we will issue in-house summons for that. We will continue to do that, and if that does not resolve the issue, we will bring both parties in for a mediation and try to resolve the issue that way. And we can go on and on to different steps, but that's the first steps that you would have to take. Let us come in there, witness the noise, and then we will issue summonses accordingly.
Okay, so we're going to take one last question, and if we did not get to your question tonight, or if you have a question after the meeting, as I previously noted, you can bring your question to the management office. You could email it to them, fax it to them, drop it off in an envelope with them. Management will take a look at the question. They'll go to the right person if they can't answer it themselves. And if you leave your contact information, they will get back to you with a response. So So the last question we have is, how come, and I don't know if this is true, but how come the owners don't get first preference for parking spaces?
So what we do is we provide parking plaques or parking stickers to a number of people, a number of residents, right? Whether they're owners or tenants. If you're a resident of Parkchester, a registered tenant, you have the ability to get a parking plaque. Obviously, we only have 285 spaces, but we do provide a lot more than those in parking plaques. And so it is on a first come, first served basis.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody tonight. We certainly had a lot of questions. We had over 100 questions and comments. And again, we'll get to those. If we didn't read it out, if we didn't discuss it, if it was about a specific apartment, management still has access to that. We'll see that. So with that, I want to thank you all for participating, for sticking with us this long. And
Jeff, if I may,
yeah,
I just want to reiterate for the newsletter, it was just explained to me that you can go on to the Parkchester North website and sign up on the Parkchester North website. It's very easy to do. And again, I certainly urge everybody who is not signed up for the newsletter to please go and do so.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our technical support staff this evening for bringing this off without hopefully too many hitches. And thank you all for participating. Good night.